Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion for Monday, August 28th, 2017. Obviously, the top story is Tropical Storm Harvey, which is located almost in the water now in the northwest Gulf of Mexico. Winds are 40 miles per hour. The pressure has dropped 3 millibars since last night, and it's down to 997 millibars, and it is moving southeast at 5 miles per hour. We also have this potential tropical cyclone, and once it became that or becomes that, it would be number 10 of the season, and it has a 90% chance of doing so, and is located just off the coast of Savannah and southeast of Charleston. And then out here in the eastern Atlantic, we do have a system that is forecast to develop by all of the global models into more than likely a hurricane, and this will track westward for several days, and we're going to just have to watch and see how this evolves. This has been designated as Investigation Area 93L. Remember, the numbers 90 through 99 and the letter L for Atlantic are used to label these fledgling systems as a way to assign computer model resources to them, sometimes aircraft reconnaissance. It's just a labeling mechanism from the National Hurricane Center, and it's actually done throughout the globe depending on what basin we're talking about. And for the Atlantic, it is L for Atlantic. All right, so these are the three areas that we are keeping a close watch on. So Harvey, the forecast track from the 11 o'clock Eastern Time advisory update does show that it will come out over the water here and turn back to the north and east and come up into the northeast Texas coastline. That's the official forecast, and we know that Harvey has been not behaving exactly according to what we want it to do track-wise, and that is to just move inland and die out. It's been very much meandering, and this may be a little too far offshore. We'll just have to wait and see, but the point is it's going to be a very slow-moving system, and tropical storm force winds from time to time, no more than 40, 45 miles per hour, I would think, unless you get a strong band that sets up. The tropical storm conditions are not going to be too problematic, especially compared with the rainfall, which has, of course, just been absurd. And looking at the potential development of tropical cyclone number 10, if it gets named, first it would be a depression, presumably, unless it goes straight to tropical storm strength. But once it strengthens to a tropical storm, assuming it does so, the name would be Irma, and it'll also be fairly slow moving at first, right along the Carolina coast, and then out to sea it goes. And for you folks back in the Carolinas, the main thing is it is going to have quite a bit of rain with it as well, and certainly the coastal impacts with higher surf, rip currents, and swells. Well, not necessarily swells, I'm sorry. You can tell I'm a little ragged. No swells from this one, not yet, but just the overall beach conditions not going to be conducive for you to go out and enjoy, unfortunately. But if this is named, assuming it does get to that point, it shouldn't be too big of a deal. And I still think that it'll be a hurricane out over the northwest Atlantic here, just because the water temperatures are so much warmer than normal. And why not? The season seems to be leaning that way as we get closer into the month of September, and the normal background state of everything is becoming more favorable. So let's run through some satellite animations here. This one's really important, as we can see that the center of circulation is clearly right here, moving off the coast of Texas, and with that, we are seeing the increase in this convection here. You can see how these storms pop up, and it looks like sort of mashed potatoes there. I mean, I'm trying to get an analogy here. When you see that sort of lumpy look, that's deeper convection. Now, this is nowhere near what it was before, but the low-level center, the vorticity, the energy at the low levels is definitely prevalent, and it's trying to develop some deep convection, but the inner core itself, it doesn't really exist in terms of a well-developed storm or a hurricane. And typically when you see this big comma-shaped look to the system, bottom line is it's going to take it quite a while to feed back over the water, so to speak, and really get going. And there is some dry air that has wrapped around the system, which is good. It's punched its way in through here and become wrapped into the circulation, and that has helped keep things from becoming absolutely, I mean, we're already at historic levels. We're running out of words here. It's bad, but at least it's not getting worse because the dry air did make its way in there. That's at least a good thing there. So looking at the potential tropical cyclone 10, our soon-to-be, presumably, depression or whatever, very disorganized overall, but here it is off the South Carolina and Georgia coastline, and it too sort of has that comma shape to it, showing that it is not very well organized, but it's trying. It's got this sort of curved, banded look to it, and it's trying to wrap around if it could, but strong upper level winds are definitely blowing across the region, and that's hindering development a little bit. But again, you folks up here along the Carolina coast and then points inland, definitely keep an eye out for some heavy rain moving up through this area, and you know how that goes. It's not going to be like what we have here in the Houston area, but heavy rain nonetheless. Now, speaking of Houston, I want to just point this out. The possibility of another 15 to 20 inches just continues here for southeast Texas. It's just the way it is. This thing's so slow moving. But then notice, too, we do not want to ignore the fact that this will move up into the lower Mississippi Valley across Louisiana and Arkansas and eastern Texas away from the coast. So southwest Louisiana, Lake Charles, Cameron, Louisiana, if you go across the I-10 corridor, and then even moving into southeast Louisiana, not far from New Orleans, probably, maybe 6 to 10 inches, depending on how these bands set up. And that's the key here, is these bands that come on shore are what really dump the heavy rain. And if we look at the radar, I can show you that here. And so here's a great example. Let me color it in blue. So this band coming up here into, I think this is Vermilion Bay, that's going to have some very heavy rainfall rates associated with it. And then some of this action up here not far from Baton Rouge area, also some very heavy rainfall. And over the Houston area, luckily the rain is moderate, which we'll take that. Take anything we can get. So this entire mess here is just dumping incredible amounts of rainfall, and that is going to make travel coming out of Mississippi across the I-10 corridor almost impossible at times, depending on which of these rain bands you hit and how they set up. And then certainly the closer you get to the Houston area, you just pretty much can't travel through here. And then off the Carolina coast, luckily, most of the activity just offshore, some of it moving into the Outer Banks up here, kind of part of the overall package of energy that's lined up out over the region, not directly associated with PTC-10. Still having a hard time getting used to that. So look, I want to just keep reminding you of this. People want to have the best information they can. They want to know, how am I going to be affected, whether it's from Harvey or whatever's developing here along the eastern seaboard, the southeast. Okay, so the easiest thing to do, the best recommendation that I can give to you, is you go to weather.gov and you put in your zip code. So let's put in my zip code for an example. Wilmington, North Carolina. Whoops, I typed it in wrong. 28450. There we go. Why is it doing that? Now wait a minute. 28405. You know what? I'm going to leave this. I'm not going to redo the video because that's just funny. Mark has hurricane fatigue. But you know what? That's exactly right. 28405. Hello. I am fine though. I won't be driving. Let's just say that. And no, I haven't been drinking. I'm just very tired. But I did get some sleep last night. Anyway, back to the very important thing here. And that is, once you put in your zip code, and don't put in the wrong one like I did, the landing page is what's so important, okay? Because in this box, hazardous weather conditions, you have a plethora of information. And the one that I want you to read the most here is this hurricane local statement. Because in this hurricane local statement, you will find information pertaining to your area. And just to give you an example for Houston, 77001, at least I got that one right, the same thing applies here, but there's a lot more information. And as an example on this one, We have a civil emergency message, and you would certainly want to read that, and the hurricane local statement, and then any of these flood warnings. There's a lot of info here, and it is tailored for your area in terms of what's happening. So please, if you're looking for local information, you don't have to scour Twitter and ask on social media, what's going on? I can't find information for my area. It's right here on the National Weather Service homepage, and it's in the hazardous weather conditions, all in red. Read it. It'll help you a lot, trust me. All right, so looking out to the eastern Atlantic, we do not want to ignore the fact that we do have something brewing over here, way off the coast, almost way off the coast of Africa over here. You can see the energy, a little round ball of red there. That's the energy associated with 93L. It does not look like much on satellite, but I want to point out something in this animation that I always look for. You got this sort of tail feather coming out like this, and that shows me that it's trying to curl its way up and eventually become something, and we're going to need to watch this closely over the next several days. Once Harvey finally dissipates, we will have to pay attention to what this becomes, okay? So just, don't worry about it right now, but it is out there, and it'll be the next system to capture our attention one way or another. All right, well, I am in Houston, and it's dire here. People stressed out. They're sick of it. We're starting to get, look at me. I'm fatigued. But seriously, I am doing well. I'm just a little haggard, I guess you would say. It just makes me sad. I just want to make a real quick commentary or editorial, if you will. I saw all of these buses, more than 120, go by my hotel on Interstate 10 last night heading west, presumably filled with evacuees. And you got to imagine how absolutely discomforting that is, to say the least, that you have to evacuate your home in the first place. You grab a few belongings that you can, and you have to leave, and we're talking about a pretty good amount here of elderly folks, children, people maybe not very much English speaking, low income, all types. But really just think about that displacement and how hard that must be. You're on a bus in a convoy. It's not exciting. For children it's something different, but it's probably fearful. You're leaving your familiar environment behind, and you don't know what's going to happen next. And that is really impactful for somebody like me to see that and to realize that as interested as we are in hurricanes and how the excitement builds when they develop, and we don't know where that comes from. It's not an excitement that we're glad to see people hurt, obviously, but we have to temper that and realize, these do affect people. And I know that most of you know that. I don't mean to lecture, but it really made it hit home for me. And not even hit home, that's not the best way to describe it, but it made me realize that this is affecting people more than we can ever imagine, unless it's happening to you, then or somebody you love. And so I just wanted to bring that up, that I saw that, and it really made me think, what is going through the minds of those people on those buses heading west towards San Antonio last night in the middle of the night. That has to be rough. So that's all part of this, and we always need to keep that in mind, all right? Don't mean to leave you on such a somber note, but that's the reality. That is the reality of it. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. As always, thank you for watching. It has been an incredible saga. It's not over yet. I will keep you updated from Houston on what's going on here and the Southeast, and of course with 93L. I'll have another video update for you tomorrow.